This is Renegade Talk Radio.
Renegade Talk Radio.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is the American Journal, Infowars.com, Band.video. I'm your host, Harrison Smith. It's Friday, the 29th of November, 2024. And we're going to show you a collection of fantastic interviews from over the last year today, since it is a holiday and we are probably sleeping off our turkey feast from yesterday. And I hope everybody else out there had a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend. I'm excited to be back on Monday. But until then, I want to remind you what Black Friday is all about. Not in the terms of like Christmas, where you're remembering it's really about Jesus, not about consumerism. No, Black Friday is very much about consumerism. But the reason it's called Black Friday is because for a long time, the Friday after Thanksgiving was the biggest shopping day of the year, and it was the first time in the whole year that companies would actually be in the black rather than in the red. It meant it was the first profitable day of the year, which means that for nearly 11 months, stores are operating at a loss and only making up the difference in that last month and a few days following Thanksgiving, which really shows you, the margins upon which most retailers are operating. Now, think about this. That's just operating retail. That's just running a store, just selling things to keep yourself in business. At InfoWars, not only are the InfoWars store and the Alex Jones store and Dr. Jones Naturals operating as retail businesses, but we fund this incredible media operation with that store. So the AlexJonesStore.com is where you go to support us and keep us on the air, and know that not only are we operating under the constraints of any normal business, which usually operates in the red until the day after Thanksgiving, but we're funding this incredible, unparalleled media empire in addition to that. So we so appreciate your support at the AlexJonesStore.com. We so appreciate that you've kept us on air this whole time and will continue to keep us on air into the future, because Alex Jones recognized years and years ago that they would be coming after us, and if we had sponsors, they could get them to drop us. If we had subscribers, they could, pull something where they could cut off our money and leave us destitute and desperate at a moment's notice. So Alex Jones set up the Alex Jones store to be a workaround, to be a fail-safe, to be a method by which we can continue to operate, because at the end of the day, no matter how far America has fallen, we still rely on capitalism as the engine of our economy. And so by using capitalism for its intended purpose, selling great items to people who want to buy it, and just making it as simple as that, Alex Jones set up a really impossible to destroy system, which is why we've been able to survive for so long. So it's a very simple equation that we run. We want to tell you the truth so that you continue to watch us. We want to sell you good products so you continue to shop with us. And these are really operate in a symbiotic way to keep each other afloat. The longer we're on air, the more people we can send to the store, the more people that go to the store, the longer we get to stay on air. So if you like that InfoWars is here, if you want InfoWars to continue into the future, go to thealexjonesstore.com. If you want us to go away forever, then don't. It really is as simple as that, and it's up to you, and we leave it in the hands of our audience. If we aren't fulfilling our end of the bargain, you're not going to support us, and we'll go away. But if you think that we've done our job, that we've held the standard high, that we've been the tip of the spear and helped to shape this nation in a positive direction, then I hope you go to the AlexJonesStore.com and support us. I just hope that it's clear and is recognizable how powerful and influential InfoWars has been in a positive direction. We have set the narrative that is now being followed, not consciously, not because we set out to manipulate people in any way, but by telling the truth, by emphasizing how powerful the truth is, by getting our audience active and involved, and to let them know that they're powerful and not just helpless at the hands and the whims of a despotic system, but sovereign individuals who can come together and make positive change if they have the will to do it. That message and that movement has inexorably changed the world, has altered the course of American history for the better, and you have us to thank for that, and we have you to thank for that. Again, it's another symbiotic relationship of InfoWars and the American people working together to destroy the old facades of the lying mainstream media or the controlling government in order to chart a path towards liberty, a future where all humanity can thrive, and to destroy the despotic morons that are trying to drive us towards a one world government. So thank you for supporting us so far. I hope you continue to support us in the future, and I hope you enjoy this special broadcast on this Black Friday. TheAlexJonesStore.com is where you go to support us.
Taking a record of the hearts and minds of the American people, it's the American Journal with your host, Harrison Smith.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the American Journal. Third hour is on. I'm your host, Harrison Smith. Infowars.com, band.video. Support us at InfoWarsStore.com. I'm so happy to welcome my guest, Daniel McAdams. He is the executive director of the Ron Paul Institute and co-host of the Ron Paul Liberty Report. He previously served as the Foreign Affairs, Civil Liberties, and Defense Intel Policy Advisor to U.S. Congressman Ron Paul from 2001 until Dr. Paul's retirement in 2012. You can follow him on X at Daniel L. McAdams. And you got to include the L because it's you're not easy to find on X, Mr. McAdams. They have you very, very difficult to find. You have to spell it exactly right. Daniel L. McAdams. And, of course, the website is ronpaulinstitute.org. Welcome to the show, sir.
No, thanks for having me on, Harrison. It's great to join you.
It's absolutely my pleasure. And, of course, I invited you on before the election, so I wasn't sure how this conversation was going to go. If this was going to be how do we deal with what's happened or how do we celebrate what's happened? What are your feelings about the election, how it went, how it's going, what we've seen from Trump so far? How are you feeling about this?
Well, one of the things I'm actually quite surprised about is that it went off without a hitch. You know, I mean, I stocked up on whiskey and God knows what for election night because I was expecting to go to bed like I did in 2020 and wake up in a whole different world occurred in the morning. And so I sort of had a weird feeling that it wouldn't be like we feared, but they were talking about they shut down D.C., they put up plywood, it's going to be a civil war, everyone is terrified and cowering. Now, maybe that's part of the psyop, but I was surprised at how smoothly, with some exceptions, but generally how smoothly the election went and how easily the announcement of Trump's victory. And in fact, it almost made me suspicious because it almost went too smoothly. But yeah, it was, I would say, not a surprise that Trump won, but then after 2020, who knows what to expect? Who knew what to expect?
I'm right there with you. Even after we were, celebrating and drinking champagne, I was driving home at around midnight on election night going, oh, man, I'm hope we're not, getting too comfortable here. This doesn't feel right. They're going to do something. But, hey, it went off. It's happened. It's amazing. I'm just so happy. And I'm so happy to see the people that have gathered around Trump. I'm not sure if you've seen it. We played it yesterday. DC Shorts came out with a video that compared, what a Trump presidency in 2020 would have looked like versus 24. And they talk about the fact that if he'd won in 2020, Mike Pence would have been the vice president. They would have had a Democrat House and Senate, and just all these things would have been different. The fact that they screwed him over in 2024, in 2020, in my opinion, allowed him to build this coalition with Elon Musk and RFK Jr. and Ron Paul there at the very end, getting in on this, talking about ending the Fed. I think they really screwed themselves over and have set Trump up to be in such a better position to get his agenda done. It really seems like a miracle of sorts. Do you think the talk about ending the Fed is real? I mean, what do you think is really going to happen here? And how did Ron Paul respond to being called back into the game one final time?
Well, he's not necessarily back into the game, but it was a very gracious offer from Elon Musk to Dr. Paul to say, hey, we wouldn't mind hearing some of your thoughts on government efficiency and getting rid of and cutting this $2 trillion that Musk talked about. So that's of course, that's nice. And you talk about coalitions. I mean, Trump had a great coalition. Kamala's people were all these brain dead pop stars and ridiculously washed up actors. Right. Nobody cares what they have to say, and to his credit, I mean, Trump assembled some interesting people. Some people with diverse views, people that weren't, sort of Trumpites, 4 years ago or 8 years ago, people like Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr., Elon Musk, on and on, Joe Rogan. He was able to appeal to them. And I think a lot of it is just sort of Biden, fatigue. I think for me, I'm happy that Trump won. I wanted Trump to win. And I hope that he's able to do some of the things, but I have no illusions. Even if he's completely sincere, it's going to be a hell of a job for him to get any of these things done because he's fighting a Leviathan that hates his guts and will do anything to stop him, as we've seen, however. But my happiness and my glee was seeing a knife stabbed, metaphorically, of course, in the heart of Bidenism of Kamalaism, of this gang of thugs that has run roughshod over our country for the last 4 years. Completely destroyed our civil liberties, and despite being claiming that they're for joy, actually spreading hate throughout the country. So I'm happy they lost. That's what I'm happiest about.
Me too, and it seems like the final nail in the coffin of the Uniparty, because they actually thought it was a good idea to bring on the Cheneys and the Rumsfelds, and they even went for the Bushes there at the end for the Democrats. I mean, are they stuck in the past? I mean, what explains this? And to me, that was another great vindication of we've been telling you these people are on the same side the whole time. They finally just came out and said it, and they were resoundingly rejected by the American people. That is such an amazing thing. I never expected to see that in my lifetime.
Well, what I was amazed at is the reaction, and I'm very pleased about the reaction of African American males when basically Obama came out and said, "Hey, you better vote for Kamala, or you hate women, and you aren't really black." I mean, it's sort of an extension of what Biden said at the first time around. If you don't vote for me, you ain't black. I mean, it's so absolutely insulting. And I was watching with glee so many of these videos that were made by black men saying, "You don't have my vote. You don't own my vote." Yeah. How insulting to think that I'm going to be on your reservation. And hey, look at the record percentage of African-American males voting for Trump, of Hispanic males voting for Trump. It's astonishing. That's a massive shift.
It absolutely is. And of course, it does just make me think of Ron Paul, and peace is popular. Prosperity is popular. That's what people want. They don't want the division. They don't want the games they play with race or gender. We're sick of that. I think everybody's sick of it, except for a very small contingent, obviously not the majority. They did not win the presidency on this, but that's what they banked on. I mean, this is a great thing. But there's an interesting evolution maybe that libertarianism is going through here. And of course, as yourself and Ron Paul is sort of bulwarks and flag bearers for the libertarian movement. How do you feel about what's happening with libertarianism right now, and the way that they're sort of working with the Trump government a little bit more, willing to at least going a little bit more mainstream, at the same time kind of embracing government a little bit more than they used to? I feel like libertarianism itself is sort of going through a transformation right now. What's your take on the trajectory here?
Well, I think, we got a lot of flack, obviously, when Dr. Paul was friendly to Elon Musk, for this reaching out. Ron Paul's selling out. What do they have on you? This sort of thing. What they don't understand is this has been Ron Paul's modus operandi for 40 or 50 years, which is that we're not going to get everything we want necessarily, but we're willing to work with people who are moving in the right direction and to encourage them. And this is something he did on Capitol Hill for years and years. And I worked for him for 12 years on the Hill. I mean, at the time, it was the stupid Iraq War, which Trump, to his credit, I think toward the end of the campaign said these dumb Middle East wars. He was right. So Ron Paul reached out to progressives. We had a great coalition of conservatives, libertarian-leaning conservatives, progressives, and we built a great coalition to challenge the war. We worked with Dennis Kucinich. So, we don't have this kind of litmus test where everything has to be absolutely perfect. But if we're moving in the right direction, well, then, that's a good step. And that's why he would vote in favor of, maybe some bills that would cut spending in the right direction that didn't have all of our sort of wish list of things. So I think for at least for Dr. Paul, I think this is a logical progression. But I do see, and I think you're right, there has been, and certainly when you talk about the Libertarian Party, I mean, there was a definite move among very, very high visibility libertarians, big L libertarians in the U.S. to back Trump. I'm not sure I completely know why or understand it. Maybe it was a tactical decision, but I think that's something that's very real.
No, I agree. And just speaking personally, I've always considered myself a libertarian. And to me, that just means liberty is the highest goal, the highest thing you're striving for, the thing you value really more than anything else. And it sort of defines good and bad, right? With liberty on one side and slavery on the other. And you sort of judge policy or anything else on that metric. But you sort of realize, okay, if there's no peace, if there's crime everywhere, if I'm being, taxed to death, it's I'm not free. You can't be free without peace. You can't be free. And actually, I have this exchange that went on that I'd love to get your take on, because I think it points to the real meaning of liberty. It's a woman, liberal woman. She says, my mother in New York keeps trying to help me. She tells me to go for a walk, go outside. She's depressed, right? She says, where am I supposed to go? Wherever I go, my brain, I have no hope for the future. I don't want to feel like this for the next 4 years. She's just depressed and miserable because Trump won. Somebody says, go to a playground where the children are enjoying the swings and slides and joyfully laughing. And she responds, sadly, the closest playground to me has been taken over by homeless people addicted to fentanyl, and it's not safe for me to be anywhere near there. Right? So it's like, okay, if your park is filled with homeless drug addicts that are going to attack you, you're not free. If I'm not free to walk to my park, I'm not free. So you got to have order so you can have peace, so you can have liberty. And I feel like it's I've had to sort of like re-engineer, like back engineer that and go, okay, if I want to be free, then we need police to impose order so I can be safe, so I can feel free. Do you see what I mean in the way I'm still a libertarian, but weirdly libertarianism means I want police out there, making things safe?
Yeah, well, we had at one of our conferences, I think it was 2018, we had the great Nassim Nicholas Taleb as one of our speakers. And he said something that always struck me. He was talking about politics and philosophy. And he said you can have anarchism at a federal level and communism at your village level. If you think about that, it's interesting. And that's all doable within libertarianism. I don't like the word libertarianism. And Dr. Paul uses a better word, I think, which is voluntarism. A voluntary society where you're not coerced into doing things that you don't want to do. And I think that's a more accurate word. Just like I don't like the word capitalism, I like the word free market, because I think it more accurately describes it in a positive way, what we'd like to see. Right. But I think, this woman who's having a meltdown, there are millions of people like this. You may have had a couple of laughs like I did yesterday watching some of these libs of TikTok put up some videos of people having a meltdown. And actually, I was laughing at them, but I also felt sad. Because of what reflects is the fact that politics is too important in our society. That's a big problem. I moved to Hungary right as communism fell. And so I was still steeped in that very, very fresh post-communist world. And families were so divided on who had been party members, who had been in opposition, who had been supporting the liberals and the right wing. And I thought, thank God, I'm an American and we don't have that. Well, it's been about 30 years ago since I moved there. And unfortunately, we're moving in that direction where your politics, Trump's your family. I hate my dad because he voted for Trump. That's insane, man. You've got your priorities way screwed up.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And that is sort of the ultimate goal, right? Is just to not have to care about this stuff. Just go, there's certain things that the government needs to be in charge of. And there's good people that are just taking care of that. The border's secure, the streets are safe. And so I don't have to worry about it. That is absolutely, to me, the ultimate goal is to just be left alone. And you shouldn't have to worry about this. And again, I think that is part of the realignment. You wrote about this realignment in a recent article from ronpaulinstitute.org. Pat Buchanan was right, and young conservatives agree. And you point out in this first paragraph, the old right view that the focus of conservatism should be to conserve what's actually great about the United States is making a comeback, and young conservatives are embracing this. I think that's certainly on display with the Trump phenomenon. Can you expand a little bit on that? What is the old right view of conservatism?
Well, the old right view is, the view, of course, at the time that we didn't even want to get in NATO. That was Mr. Conservative, the senator from Ohio, didn't want to get into NATO. Senator Taft didn't want to get into NATO, didn't want to have this unfortunate derailing of conservatism that I would blame mostly on William F. Buckley Jr., who said, well, we got to kind of be the bad guys for a while because defeating communism is the most important thing. So we've got to be big government conservatives now. And that's a real problem. And so what I think we're seeing, and I primarily focused on foreign policy, and I've always loved Pat Buchanan, by the way. I saw his 1992 speech at the RNC, and it's a masterful work. And I didn't agree with everything he said, but it's a fantastic. In fact, I homeschooled my kids. And when they were studying speech, I said, watch this speech because this is a great speech. This is how you deliver a speech. Of course, Reagan was great, too. But I focused more on foreign policy and a return to non-interventionism. Young people, if you look at recent polls, are absolutely sick of us backstopping the wars in the Middle East. They don't want us propping up aggression. They're sick of the proxy war in Ukraine. And if you look at the numbers, it's very, very significant. And you're not seeing that with and I think you mentioned some polling data earlier in your previous segment. You're not seeing this with the 65ers and up, the boomer generation, but you are seeing young people who are tired of having to lead the world and having their pockets picked to do it. So I think that's a very encouraging thing.
Yeah, isn't it a funny division that sort of crosses party lines in a way that really it's like it doesn't matter. It's like you've got the left and the right, and so you're dividing down the middle, but then you've got this crossbar that divides those into two groups. So you've got sort of the anti-intervention right and the anti-intervention left and the pro-intervention. And like it's almost like that's the new dichotomy that's being split. And it's funny because suddenly I'm on the same side as AOC and Rashida Tlaib, and it's like, and my interpretation of all this, so I think they're right about Israel and Gaza for the same reason they're wrong about everything else, because they just see it as a race thing, and they're basically like, well, the Israelis are white, they're oppressing brown people, so that's bad. And I just happen to agree with them on this, but I see it as a nationalistic and a foreign intervention and an anti-imperial stance is why I am for self-rule by the people of Gaza. So, but it's an interesting new division that really only over the last year has made itself a powerful force in American politics because of what's ensued after October 7th. I mean, do you think this is going to have a lasting impact on electoral politics?
Well, I think there's been a lot of pushback, of course, and there's been a real attempt to make the people protesting against what's happening in Gaza to be Marxist and pro-Hamas, and that I gave a speech at the Rage Against the War Machine rally here a few weeks ago at the Washington Memorial in D.C., and one of the things that I tried to do in my speech was to appeal to my fellow pro-life conservatives, saying, you're pro-life. Why aren't you speaking up? Don't let the left dominate this. You need to speak up for life, and you need to demand that our government stop sending weapons to slaughter families, both Muslim and Christian, in the region. We have to, as conservatives, speak up, because if we don't conserve life, then there's nothing left to conserve. And there's a lot of fear of people being called bad names, but that's kind of, as a Christian, that's kind of in our history, right? So, and by the way, if you are very pro-Israel, the U.S. government is not doing them any favors. The military-industrial complex is making a lot of money off this war, but we just saw in Amsterdam yesterday there is so much residual hatred, and it's actually terrifying. People around the world are sick of what's happening, and they're very, very angry. So continuing to push them in this direction. Hey, it's not doing them any favors, I mean, it's like the guy at the bar who has had too many. Sometimes you need a friend to put his arm around you and say, okay, buddy, let's go home. You've had enough. And I think that's the case right now. And you've had enough means, sorry, no more weapons. We wish you well, but you guys have got to sort this thing out yourselves.
Yeah, we got to cut them off. I totally agree. And you're right. It's not doing the Israelis any favor. I mean, they're practically on the verge of civil war right now. With all the chaos going on in that country, you've got 100,000 people there dislocated in their own land, having to live off government handouts because they can't go back to work in the north of their country. It's like total devastation, and yet you're called anti-Semitic for opposing this. It makes no sense, and it feels like those labels are not having the impact that they used to have. People sort of understand, like, oh, okay, this is a trick. I'm talking about war. I'm talking about babies being killed. I'm talking about bombing hospitals. I don't care what you call me. This is wrong, and I'm going to keep saying it's wrong. So call me whatever you want. I feel like their labels are having less effect now, which is a wonderful thing in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you need to have a conversation about things, to use a cliched term, But the sad fact is that it's sort of ironic. It actually probably is increasing anti-Semitism. I mean, I've been very vocal on my Twitter account about opposing U.S. backstopping of Israel's actions, and from a moral perspective, opposing what Israel's doing. But the problem is that attracts a lot of people that just hate Jewish people, and I get a lot of that on my timeline. And I'm trying to be the one to push back and say, look, this is the wrong tack to take. In fact, I mean, we know that a lot of great Jewish people are with us on this. I mean, people like my friend Max Blumenthal, like Glenn Greenwald. There's a lot of great people. I mean, Max gave a tremendous speech at the Rage Against the War Machine rally. I encourage people to try to find it, where he said, I'm Jewish. I do not subscribe to the supremacism. It's terrible. So, I think it is encouraging. But again, there's a lot of frustration and hatred out there.
Yeah, and look, at the end of the day, the American government needs to prioritize America. Everything they do should be judged on whether or not it's benefited Americans and American interest. And clearly that is like not even remotely the top priority of the people in charge right now. And I do think that's why there's been a lot of pushback. That's why a lot of people have, come to Donald Trump, because he sees the nation as what I see the nation as an extended family. We're on the same team and everybody else in the world is not on our team. So don't give them the ball. It shouldn't seem that complicated. And you say in this article, the younger generation on the right is getting it, and they're threatening the establishment in ways that should warm all of our conservative hearts. Do you think the establishment is scared right now? Do you think what do you think they're going to try to do next to stop this?
Well, yeah, it's fun. It's fun to have a victory lap, and I'm pleased to see what's happened. But let's not fool ourselves. The deep state, the permanent state, the people who are behind this, they're not going away,
right.
And they're going to morph into a million different kinds of beasts, and we may knock down Pompeo, but there's going to be 100 Pompeos behind him. So it's worrisome, and this is the time to get down. Now, I was just looking at Donald Trump. He just released a plan to dismantle the deep state. I have to say, I'm surprised at how good this plan is.
Right.
I don't know if you've seen this 10-point plan, but some of it is just, if he can I don't know how he's going to be able to do it, because, he's got to have a whole system against him. But in fact, I was thinking about this before we started talking, and I think one of his secret weapons, if he really embraces and understands it, is, as we began this conversation, his appeal to outsiders. You've got to have people like an RK, who's not part of the system, who doesn't need kudos from the system. People like Elon Musk, who doesn't need to make a buck from the system. He's already very rich. People like Tulsi Gabbard. Find more independent people like that. His mistake last time was saying, I want to get the generals. Well, the generals all hated your guts and stabbed you in the back. Right. So he needs to appeal to outsiders to get some of this done, because the insiders, this is their bread and butter. They don't want to dismantle the system.
Right. You got to have people that don't depend on the system to destroy the system. It's and I hope he's learned that lesson. It seems like he has. I'm very encouraged by the amount of anti-Pompeo stuff I've seen recently from every direction. People that I know are close to President Trump posting stuff saying, President Trump, you stay away from Pompeo. He is not your friend. We covered it quite a bit in the beginning of the show. So I want to talk to you about that, about what we can do to keep these types of people, and not just Pompeo, but other neocons and CIA operatives out, and that secret weapon of appealing to outsiders. But also, I hope congressmen and senators in the Republican Party realize you're not going to just weather Trump and you can't just oppose him and hope he goes away and get back to business as usual. The tide has turned. The political landscape shape has shifted, and we need them with President Trump dismantling the deep state. He cannot do it without the backfield of congressmen and senators backing him up. More with Daniel McAdams on the other side. Stay with us.
Now, the one thing I want you to do, if I could ask you to do anything for America and Alex and this network and this crew, the one thing I would ask you to do, go to thealexjonesstore.com right now and sign up for Alex Jones VIP Club. It's $30 a month, but you get $40 in store credit. So if you're going to buy a $35 shirt, you might as well sign up for the VIP Club so that you can get that extra $10 and just get the shirt that you want. That is going to ensure that we can fund this operation, fund the next operation, and ensure that Alex always has a voice. They can try to steal his identity. They can try to steal his business. They can try to steal America. They can try to sacrifice humanity in nuclear genocide. But if you go to thealexjonesstore.com and sign up for Alex Jones VIP Club, they'll never take away our voice. They'll never take away our freedom. They'll never take away free speech, and we can save America together. Please go now and be the reason Alex Jones will always be on the air.
Infowars.com is tomorrow's news today.
Putting the power of conversation into the caller's hands. You're listening to The American Journal with your host, Harrison Smith.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're here just observing the sea change, watching the tidal shift, wondering where it goes from here. I'm your host, Harrison Smith. My guest is Daniel McAdams. He is the executive director of the Ron Paul Institute and the co-host of Ron Paul's Liberty Report. You can follow Mr. McAdams at Daniel L. McAdams on X. That's at Daniel L. McAdams. And, of course, the website is ronpaulinstitute.org. And we sort of finished off the last segment there talking about Pompeo, and there's a big push right now posting old videos of Pompeo, sort of laughing at Trump getting his house raided by the FBI and going, Trump, this is not your friend. You don't want him in office. Do you think Trump's hearing this? I mean, what do you think the threat is? And are there other Pompeos that we need to be looking out for beyond the man himself?
Yeah, I think he does hear this. And on one hand, if he can be defeated in his aspirations, and trust me, he's got big aspirations. This guy is like dying for this job.
Yep.
That would be a victory because he's a bad guy. He was a bad guy last time. And when we saw Trump praising him toward the end of the campaign, it was very disappointing. This is a guy who's working at cross purposes to Trump, but he's also a very smart person. He graduated at the top of his class at West Point. He is no dummy. He's very smart. He's very slick. And he's very dangerous. But defeating him would be great. But what's worrisome is that there are, tons and tons of Mike Pompeo's behind Mike Pompeo.
Right.
And, I don't want to throw cold water because, this is a time to be happy but cautious.
Yep.
But, there are people like Brian Hook, who's reportedly staffing up the State Department. Brian Hook is a neocon. He's the one who urged Trump, unfortunately successfully, to destroy the Iran deal, which was working really well, and get us on a course toward conflict with Iran. You have people like what's his name, the former ambassador to Germany, Rick Grenier, who was Bolton's assistant at the UN, died in the wool neocon. And these, I'll tell a little story. I was working for a neocon think tank when George W. Bush was elected. And this think tank had very, very close contacts. I'm talking Dick Cheney going through the office, Donald Rumsfeld going through the office.
Right.
And I was not allowed in the conference room, but they closed off the conference room. They blocked up the doors and windows, and they had the plum book. And they sat there with the plum book. And the neocons came in and they said, okay, this guy goes here. This guy, put him here. Do this. That's how they do things. While the rest of us are kind of celebrating and hoping things go well, these guys are busy little beavers.
Right.
And you can bet your booty that they're doing it right now. They do not give up. They do not have a reverse gear, and so we have to be vigilant and careful. We don't have to feel despair because we're not going to get everything we want. There's going to be some bad guys in there. But we have to remember that these people do not give up. This is their whole life. The rest of us have families and hobbies and things. No, for them, this is it. Power is it. So.
And they still have so much power. I mean, their power is undiminished at this point. I mean, no action has been taken yet. So, we showed the video earlier in the show, and you referenced it, Donald Trump's plan to dismantle the deep state. The most interesting one to me is number 7. He says he wants to ask Congress to establish an independent auditing system to continually monitor our intelligence agencies to ensure they're not spying on our citizens or running disinformation campaigns against the American people, or that they're not spying on someone's campaign like they spied on my campaign. Now, ostensibly, Congress is supposed to have oversight over the intelligence agencies. We know that in practice, that hasn't been the case for decades. How do you regain oversight when they have so much power, when they've got the blackmail folders, when they've got this unfettered access to information and intelligence and all this stuff? How do you do this? And how do you think he should go about trying to reestablish, elected representative control over our spy state?
It's not going to be easy because, as you say, they've infiltrated everything. Look at how many former intelligence officers are now elected to Congress.
Right.
Do you think they're going to vote for oversight? No, it's not going to happen. It's very difficult. We need a new church committee,
right.
Church commission to look at what's happened. But I think the silver lining is the fact that they did spy on his campaign and he knows it. So he's PO'd and he wants to do something about it. It's going to be difficult for him to do something about it. But, I think if he were to ask me, and he won't ask me probably, I would say you need to dig a little bit deeper and try to figure out what's the purpose of an intelligence community in the United States. Now, I do not disagree that we need to have intelligence analysis. We need to have people that will tell us what's coming. And I mean, this is what unfortunately led to JFK's demise from many reports, is that he wanted to separate intelligence analysis from covert action.
Right.
And he wanted to actually, when he said split it into a million pieces, he really meant the covert action part. The people that we send over to stir up trouble, probably in places like Georgia right now, not the state, but the country. We definitely have CIA people in Ukraine, in the Middle East. These are the people that cause problems. They do the color revolutions. He wanted to separate those two, and I think that's a very good idea. And maybe even break the covert action part up. But you have to kind of back off a little bit and look at what is the role of an intelligence community in a free society. And a lot of people would say that it's incompatible having a covert political warfare unit in your government is incompatible with a free society. I don't know. I think this is a good. I mean, the silver lining is all the crap they did to him. He recognizes now, and he's mad.
Right.
And he's going to come out swinging against them, and I hope he's successful doing it.
But it's sort of one of those, it's not damned if you do, damned if you don't, but it's like, you talk about his appeal to outsiders, and that's his big strength. He's able to bring in outsiders in. But with the intelligence agencies, it's so opaque. If you are an outsider, you don't know what does what or who does what or how it works. So it's like, okay, if you want to actually make tangible change with this system, you have to have somebody inside who knows it well enough, who can advise you on how to change it. But if there's somebody inside that knows it well enough, they're probably not somebody you can trust. So what do you do here? Maybe the only option is just to break it and shatter it to 1,000 and come up with a new one in some way. He's got a challenge ahead of him. And according to, I think it was Washington Times, the FBI is freaking out right now about all of this. And apparently they were totally blindsided by Trump's victory. And I assume are probably getting rid of some documents right now, just in case. Yeah, FBI brass stunned and shell-shocked. Somehow we know more than they do. That's kind of disturbing, isn't it? How do we know more than our intelligence agencies? But
multi-$100 billion intelligence. Right. You got me. We didn't know. No idea.
We had no idea. And of course, it was right after the JFK assassination that you brought up that they started the drug running during Vietnam. That's how they got their alternative source of income. So that severed the purse strings, which was the way that Congress previously provided oversight. And there's been no attempt since then. I think a new church commission is exactly what's necessary, and maybe we can find a good senator to lead that. Is that something that you think is possible?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Harrison, you make a great point, that it's difficult to find people who understand that world but are objective enough to oppose it. And I would there's plenty of good names. I would throw out, Larry Johnson is someone, who I know very well. Who was a CIA analyst. Ray McGovern briefed every president since JFK himself for the CIA. Now, he's a person who's on the left, but he's a very much a civil libertarian and a great person. I mean, that's just two to start with. There are plenty of others, that I know. They're there. You just have to find them and talk to them. It's definitely possible.
Maybe Jeffrey Sachs or John Mearsheimer, some of these people that have been coming out against the wars in Ukraine and in Israel, recently, sort of, even though they're highly respected and these professors that understand the geopolitical world, but very few of them actually come out strongly against the manipulation that our deep state has wrought overseas for so long.
I mean, Sachs had nothing to gain by what he did. Only scorn, which is what he's gotten. So he's someone who was on the other side, if you remember, when the Cold War ended. He was on the Russia side, and he was on the side of the oligarchs destroying the country. And now he's come to realize the mistakes that he's made, and maybe he's trying to do a little bit of penance, which is not a bad thing, I might add. But he's taking some big risks doing what he's doing, and that kind of bravery, I mean, you don't see it very often.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think the tidal shift that I'm seeing is that Republicans are finally sort of understanding the rules of the game and how you have to play it. And it's even stuff that we don't even like doing really necessarily. Like, we're libertarians. We don't want the government interfering and stuff. But it's like, I showed a clip earlier. Mike Johnson uses the term comprehensive immigration reform. And Laura Ingraham goes, don't use that. Don't use these words. Tell me what you're actually going to do. We want deportations, not comprehensive immigration. So, it's like, let's just get rid of all the weasel words. Let's get rid of all of the talking points. Just set things right. And it feels like people are desperate for that. And I just hope that Republican congressmen and senators see this and are like, okay, we better go with the wind if we want to keep our seats. What do you think the likelihood is that Trump will be actually bolstered and backed up and helped by a Republican Congress and Senate?
Well, you know who would not utter such a dopey phrase, and that's someone like Thomas Massie. A plain spoken, he says what he means what he says. I mean, for me, he's the absolute best member of the U.S. House of Representatives.
Yep.
And there are some reasons for that. One of them is that he's a successful man before he went into Congress. He's the kind of citizen legislator that our framers, imagined. They didn't imagine people like Pelosi. Every day she wakes like $80 million on the stock market.
Yep.
Wow. I mean, I told my son, just do her trades.
Right.
He'll do fine. I mean, this is not what we imagined, from our legislative body. And Thomas Massie, in my opinion, he reflects that. And it was interesting to see toward the end of the Trump campaign because, Massie and Trump have not always had a very good relationship. I think Trump really didn't understand Massie at first. And he took a couple of Massie's votes perhaps out of context. And there was a lot of tension between them. And I think if I'm not mistaken, he supported a challenger to Massie a few times ago. And I think he understands him better now. And I think the feeling is mutual. But it was surprising to see at the end a pretty enthusiastic endorsement of Trump by Thomas Massie toward the end. And what I hope for, if I can have my own little fantasy, I hope that means that Trump understands the importance of at least reaching out to someone like Massie. Now, I'd hate to see him out of the House, but he certainly deserves a leadership role, more of a leadership role than he has right now, because he's a man of unquestionable integrity and intelligence.
It's absolutely incredible. I mean, his interview with Tucker Carlson should be like mandatory viewing in civics class because you're exactly right. I mean, and you just see it. You watch, you go, oh, this is the type of guy that's supposed to be in our government. This is exactly him. Where before he was ever in government, he was like volunteering and he was fixing the boiler in the jail with his own bare hands. I mean, he is a force of nature, and he explains sort of how it works and some of the pressures. He talks about everybody having an AIPAC guy except for him, and he talks about Donald Trump getting mad at him for his vote and going, you're messing me up. So I hope he's bringing Massie in and has the appreciation for Massie that all of us Americans should have as somebody that is the real deal in a way that is totally unprecedented in D.C. right now.
Yeah, when we launched the Ron Paul Institute in early 2013, there was a young congressman from Kentucky who had just gotten elected. Everyone says he's a Ron Paul guy. Well, we were holding our press conference to start to announce the institute, and here comes Thomas Massie just waltzing in, and we invite him to come to the front table. He very enthusiastically came to the front table, gave a great speech. Joined our board for the Ron Paul Institute. And so that was a great beginning for him. And I think he's just gotten better.
He is amazing. We need more Massies, less Pompeos. That's the takeaway here. And when it comes to war, you got the Middle East war, you got Ukraine. Both of these have been ramping up and up and up and up. I mean, it seems like there's never a step backwards. It's always expanding. It's always, growing more and more disturbing. Then Trump wins the election. And within 24 hours, Russia is making overtures going, hey, it's time for peace talks. Hamas is saying we call for an immediate, cessation of conflicts. This has given me a lot of hope, but it's also, again, all of this stuff sort of double-edged sword, right? It's like, okay, looks like Trump is the peace candidate. He's already making strides in that direction, but we know that they're desperate. We know they don't just let their wars get taken away without a fight. So, I mean, are they going to do something in the next few months to double down our support of Ukraine or, to get into war with Iran? I mean, what do you think the deep state is thinking now about the wars that we are waging by proxy in these areas? And do you think that we're in greater danger now, or do you think we're starting to move towards peace?
I did think we were in greater danger. I feel a little bit more comfortable now. I think the margin of Trump's victory, not only Trump's victory, but the victory of Republicans in the House and Senate. And Republicans are not yet the anti-war party, but there are a lot of Republicans that are. I think to try to pull something off right now would be pretty transparently, political on the part of the administration. So I'm not as worried about that. But the issue that people need to understand, anyone going into the State Department, anyone going into the Pentagon, people need to understand that other countries also have national interests. And that's been the problem with the Biden administration. I mean, Russia has legitimate national interests that the United States cannot dictate. That is the lesson of this 2-year special military operation. They will not allow another country to dictate what it feels to be its existential needs. Right. The same is true with us, and that's fantastic. So you're not going to have, I hope, you're not going to have a Trump going over there and telling them what to do, because it will be unsuccessful. And there are people that are around Trump, reportedly around Trump, that have come up with some plans that are absolutely cockamamie. The idea of freezing the current line of contact is absolutely a non-starter. And so if these people talk Trump into this as the solution, Trump will fail. He needs to understand that this is not how things work. And I hope he talks to people that understand this. I was really pleased, Harrison, we re-showed it on our show a couple of days ago, but an old clip from J.D. Vance from 2023, where he talked about China, and he said the U.S. is going over and hectoring people and telling them what to do, and meanwhile China is building roads and they're building infrastructure. He said we need to be more like that and stop telling people what to. It was a brilliant little clip, and I hope that's the J.D. Vance that we're getting as a vice president, because that would be tremendous. I mean, it was just a great little clip.
It just seems like a clear-eyed and like empathetic view of American foreign policy has been lacking for so long, and we're being run by these people that think you can just stomp all over everybody anywhere, and that they have to take it, and they just don't. And you got to take the China's point of view and Russia's point of view. I mean, these are powerful countries. You can't just dictate to them, what you want. I'm very happy to see a lot of what J.D. Vance has come up with or said publicly. I hope he sticks to that in policy. And we've seen some of the public communications between Elon Musk and Ron Paul, some flirting back and forth, some encouragement. It's very good to see. And I understand maybe if you can't say it, but has there been behind the scenes communication? Is this really happening? Is Ron Paul being asked for his opinion during this transition period, or the Department of Government Efficiency? Is he going to have a say in this? Can you tell us anything about that?
Well, I think it's a little early to tell. We've had a little bit of contact, but it's not. I mean, as Dr. Paul said in the interview with David Gornowski, great guy, by the way, he said, "I'm not interested in any formal government role." And of course, he's not at that stage in his life and career right now. But I mean, I think he's thrilled. He's thrilled to be asked. He's happy. He feels like he has, certainly after 50 years of doing this, he has some insights to offer. And I know that on an informal basis, if he's asked, he'll be happy to give those. And I hope that does happen. I think it would be beneficial for everyone and for the country.
Yeah, I do too. And again, I just keep thinking of that slogan, "Peace is popular." And I sort of wish Trump had talked more about peace during the campaign. Obviously, I'm not questioning it. He won, so whatever. He did what he had to set it right. But I would have really liked to see Trump come out and just go, we need peace now. This can't maintain. Instead, he tends to sort of favor Israel and say they need more weapons and they need to go faster. And it sends sort of a mixed message when he's saying, I want peace, but also they need to hit Iran harder. Like this is all sort of mixed up. What do you think his intentions really are? And what do you think he'll be able to do to sort of break us away from the conflicts in the Middle East that have nothing to do with us?
Well, Trump is sort of a paradox in this way, because on the one hand, he will say extremely pro-Israel things. I mean, way beyond anything that we've seen. And he even says that I'm the most pro-Israel president ever. But on the other hand, what he doesn't like are messy things around him. He doesn't like messy people. He doesn't like messy things. And I think if he's looking over there and this thing is not being resolved, he's going to be frustrated with Netanyahu. He's going to say, fix, he's already done it a couple of times. He said, this needs to be fixed. And it's not because he has any sort of empathy for the other side necessarily. We don't know. But it's that this is making me look bad. And, you and I may wish that he had more empathy or at least more revulsion. We don't know, again, what's in his heart. But we'll take the win. If he doesn't want to look bad and this is making him look bad and he'll dial down the violence, then, hey, you got to take the W.
I actually do see a lot of empathy in Trump's statements. More than Kamala, more than Biden. I mean, when he actually acknowledges the people dying in Ukraine or in Gaza, and he'll make these overt, praise. He'll praise Israel, till the cows come home. But he's like, people are dying and we got to stop the dying. And he just says stuff like that, where it's just like, we got to stop the killing enough already. And it's like, finally, somebody actually seems concerned that there are human beings expiring somewhere, when it's always treated as just a geopolitical maneuver that we're making when it comes to the powers that be and the neocons and others. They totally remove the humanity out of it. And I see Trump actually having, respecting the humanity of the people involved in both of these. Well, what about Ukraine? Do you think he'll be able to, find a reasonable resolution there?
Well, I think it has to be bilateral. I don't think Ukraine as a country or whatever it is should be, is necessarily going to be involved. I don't know that it has agency. This has to be something between the U.S. and Russia, and the thing that people don't understand is that Russia has expended a lot of blood and treasure to secure what it views as its vulnerable flank. Now, why is it vulnerable? Because NATO expanded despite the promises of the West after the end of the Cold War. NATO should be disbanded. There's no use for NATO. There's no Warsaw Pact. Why is there a NATO? Well, they're inventing things to do. They invented the Yugoslav War because they wanted to have a purpose. So we expanded NATO to their doorstep. We put missiles right next to them. Hey, if that happened to us, if China started putting missiles in Tijuana, we would be pretty concerned. Yeah. And so we have to understand that they have legitimate concerns and legitimate interests. There are a lot of very, very thuggish, weird people in Ukraine. Now, the whole country isn't, and it's sad that people are suffering, but there are people with abhorrent ideologies. We've all seen the swastikas and the black suns and all these crazy tattoos and things. They are still living in the world where there was a segment of people in Ukraine that backed Hitler. And that's, for normal people, disgusting. Yeah. So they have to deal with that. Russia lost how many millions of people? The Soviet Union lost millions of people in World War II. They're not going to allow this virus to start spreading next door. It's just not going to happen. So, it won't be easy to have a solution. But one of the things that you could do overnight would be just to stop giving them money and weapons. And they're just going to have to deal with it because everything we've given them hasn't worked anyway. Right. Just stop.
Yeah, and it really seems that, there's this through line through all of the conflicts and all of the strife that we talk about, whether it's illegal immigration or the war in Ukraine. It's like, well, we could just stop funding it and see what happens. Like that would be a great start. Stop funding the wars. Stop bringing people in by the millions and giving them places to stay. I mean, just stop funding this stuff and let's start there. We only have 2 minutes left, so I'm not gonna introduce the topic of BRICS quite yet. But I think that's another interesting thing I'd love to get your take on soon. Again, my guest is Daniel McAdams. Follow him on X at Daniel L. McAdams. The website is ronpaulinstitute.org. Just final words. If you had 1 minute to say anything to Donald Trump, what advice would you give him here in the next few months before his inauguration?
Well, it's a great start with how to dismantle the deep state. I hope that he takes a good, fresh look at the U.S. place in the world, and looks back to our founders. We want to be friendly with all countries who feel the same, but to have no passionate attachment to any other. China could be a great trading partner. We don't need to attack China. There's a lot of people who don't like the Ukraine war because they want to go to war with China. China's a powerhouse. It can't be denied. Right. They want to be friendly. They don't want to kill their customers. Right. And so we can protect American jobs in many ways. But doing it by going to economic war with China is not the way. And I think he has the right instinct. Dismantle the regulatory state. Free up the energy that we have here. Literally underneath us, oceans of oil and things. Free that up, and then we'll become competitive again. And I hope that he sees that he understands that. And I think he does.
I think so, too. No entangling alliances and jettisoning the passionate attachments to foreign countries. And of course, you're quoting George Washington. I know that because of your wonderful article you can find at ronpaulinstitute.org. Pat Buchanan was right, and young conservatives agree. It's a sea change, and I'm very excited for what comes next. Daniel McAdams, thank you so much for being with us on X at Daniel L. McAdams, ronpaulinstitute.org. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Absolutely, folks. Stay tuned. The Alex Jones Show begins in about 90 seconds. We will see you back here on Monday for what may very well be the last few days of InfoWars' existence. Have a good weekend.
At InfoWars MD, you can find the most popular in-demand supplements available and sourced at the highest quality. nitric oxide, probiotics, joint relief max, nerve renew, prostate support, collagen, superfood greens, turmeric, ashwagandha, CBD, along with Mushroom Max Nootropic, Better Mood Plus, Libido RX, and Good Night's Sleep. Improve the quality of your life and support the InfoWar. Go to InfoWars MD under Health and Wellness at InfoWarsStore.com.
Here's my plan to dismantle the deep state. First, I will immediately reissue my 2020 executive order restoring the president's authority to remove rogue bureaucrats. Second, we will clean out all of the corrupt actors in our national security and intelligence apparatus. The departments and agencies that have been weaponized will be completely overhauled. Third, we will totally reform FISA courts.
The president is allowed to declassify materials. He does have that authority. So how do you square that?
Well, the president has the authority to do a lot of things. Doesn't mean if he does it, it's the right thing to do, such as going to war, pushing a button that is going to launch missiles.
The DOJ and the FBI are doing everything they can to slow the process to declassify the FISA documents to the point of stopping it in its tracks, redacting portions of the pages, rendering them mostly unreadable.
Well, every time we have seen something be unredacted, it wasn't about sources and methods. We want to protect those, but every time it has been self-serving to protect the people who have been violating federal regulations, violating protocol of the Justice Department, or violating the law. And so it's kind of calling wolf one too many times to be saying, gee, this is terrible. No, it's transparency, and the American people need to see just how bad the DOJ was weaponized. The
Democrats have long used FISA applications to not only generate a spy campaign on a presidential nominee, but also to spy on journalists. Town Hall reported the Obama Department of Justice has spied on journalists. They tracked James Rosen, formerly of Fox News. They seized the phone records from Associated Press reporters. Now the Knight First Amendment Institute at Columbia University and Freedom of the Press Foundation have released documents showing that in 2015, the Obama DOJ had secret rules to target journalists under FISA.
These documents also show that the Democrat-funded Steele dossier played a significant role in the FBI's justifications and their request to wiretap former Trump campaign advisor Carter Page. In the initial foreign intelligence surveillance application submitted in October of 2016, the FBI stated it believes Page has been the subject of targeted recruitment by the Russian government to undermine and influence the outcome of the 2016 U.S. presidential election in violation of U.S. criminal law. The documents also include several renewal applications to extend surveillance of Page. And the last renewal in late spring 2017 is significant because at that point, the FBI had dumped Christopher Steele as a source after he misled them over his media contacts. As the documents state, subsequently, the FBI closed source number 1 is an FBI source. And while the visible sections of the renewal application don't indicate the dossier was verified, the FBI said that Steele was reliable based on his previous work. Now, Carter Page maintains he did nothing wrong, and with this latest release of documents, he tells Fox News in a statement, "I'm having trouble finding any small bit of this document that rises above complete ignorance and or insanity." Now, House Democrats, though, have been quick to say these documents bolster their arguments that the FBI had legitimate concerns about Carter Page.
Congress, what part of the Fourth Amendment do you not understand? Why are we disregarding James Madison's words? The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Pretty solid authorization there.
We're unaware of what has happened, and they don't want you to be aware.
Isn't that the big hurdle, though? They tried to deny it existed. Now it's admitted they lied. It's admitted it's huge. It's totally illegal. I think that's the beginning of the end of the system if they simply, if the people simply say no.
Well, can we say no? Here's the issue. We depend on these phones. We depend on the power. We depend on the ability to communicate and to contact our families and to voice chat and video chat. So what we need is we need legislation. We need some serious, hard looking at what's actually happening and say, listen, we have to stop this. We cannot have a total loss of privacy that is occurring.
You're watching The American Journal with your host, Harrison Smith. Watch live right now at band.video.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is The American Journal. I'm your host, Harrison Smith. Third hour is on, and joining me in studio is Angela McArdle. She serves as the chair of the National Libertarian Party and is a two-time candidate for California's 34th Congressional District. You can follow her on X at Angela4LNC Chair. The website, AngelaMcArdle.com. Welcome to the show, Angela.
Thanks so much for having me back.
My pleasure, and what a great time to have you back. I mean, congratulations to you, of course, for not just helping Trump get elected, but helping to bring libertarianism actually closer to the levers of power than perhaps ever before. Tell us, what's your last 2 weeks been like?
It's been crazy.
I can imagine.
I mean, it's been crazy. I've been sort of involved in 3 different presidential campaigns all at the same time, juggling. But it's been really exciting. I'm just thrilled. I think I kind of feel like everyone else where I'm like, did that actually happen?
Right.
Did we do it? But is there...
Pinching yourself, yeah.
Yeah. Is something terrible about to befall us?
Right.
Seems okay.
I know. That's why I keep saying it's like we're abused animals. It's like we're afraid to go get the food. We think we're going to get smacked in the nose. It's like we got to learn how to win again. But there's been a lot of drama with Libertarian Party over this whole election. So the 3 campaigns you're talking about would be the Libertarian, the Trump, and the RFK campaign, right? So what's going on with the Libertarian Party? As much as I would love to see a good Libertarian candidate actually, take a big percentage, I like what you're doing almost even better, getting in with the Trump campaign and connecting them with some of the old school, the Ron Pauls and the Thomas Masseys, and just getting the influence that we've been blocked out of from so long, for so long. Just what is the strategy here, and why do you think this is the right course forward for libertarians?
Right. So as of now, and we'll see what happens in 4 years with who gets the GOP nomination. But, we ran a candidate who was very culturally on the left.
Right.
Very, very on the left. And all the polling data showed he did not pull from President Trump. So that was sort of how we threaded that needle. It wasn't a great turnout for us, but that doesn't matter because what we got out of it was an agreement from Donald Trump to free Ross Ulbricht, to abolish the Department of Education, and to put libertarians in his administration. So I couldn't be happier. I think it worked out really well. And I think that we've demonstrated we have the ability to play kingmaker.
Yeah.
You want to run someone like Vivek Ramaswamy or J.D. Vance next time? Great. I'm going to run a screaming blue-haired leftist who will not take votes from your candidate. If you run a Mitt Romney, though, I may run a Dave Smith or someone like that. So I'll play nice, or I can play hardball.
I think that's a great position to be in. And again, just the coalition that's being built from
amazing.
RFK Jr., Elon Musk, bringing Ron Paul in, making that connection. These are things that we never RFK Jr. going up talking about getting rid of fluoride in the water. I mean, did you ever think in a million years we would be here? It's amazing to see this happen.
It is really great. I got to pass an invitation from the Trump campaign to Ron Paul, and vice versa. And that's out of my hands now, but I was excited that I got to play a small role in that and connecting them all. And things like that just keep happening over and over again. They basically reached out to me for advice on how to court the votes of libertarians. And I said, I can't give you our actual nomination. There are legal issues and bylaws issues to get around, but I can tell you what to do if you want the libertarian vote. And they were super, super eager. They listened really well. Donald Trump was really warm and friendly about it all. So I hope this starts a trend, of advancing libertarian ideals.
I hope so too. And but it's not going to be easy, is it? I mean, no. Obviously, the sort of the holy grail of libertarianism would be like end the Fed, right? If you had to sum it up in one. Well, you had Jeremy Powell asked point blank, if Trump asked for your resignation, will you go? And he says no. So, I mean, that's a big battle. And we know how powerful the Fed is. And we know they're not just going to go away easy or even have their power curtailed without putting up a very powerful fight. So, I mean, what's that going to look like in Trump's administration? Do you think he's going to go head to head with the Fed? Do you think there are mechanisms in place to diminish their power somehow, try to, get back some control to the people? I mean, what do you think that's going to look like?
I think you're already seeing a little bit of shenanigans at play in the Senate. I think there are a lot of people who want to block him. I think we should all set our expectations accordingly. I set mine fairly low, and it's not because I don't think that Donald Trump has the force of will to do things, but I think, they've already tried to murder him once.
Right.
We should be realistic about what he's going to be able to accomplish with all these people after him. So I like radical pragmatism. Let's abolish one agency at a time.
Right.
So, if we get rid of the Department of Education, and they should have the votes also, I think it should be beyond just stripping it down to nothing. They should be able to legislative-wise just trash it.
Just wipe it out, yeah.
If we could just do one agency every 4 years, I mean, we could really get rid of the federal government.
And that's going to have massive downstream effects. I mean, when you get rid of the Department of Education, orchestrating education nationwide where they've utterly failed, and return it to the states, return it to local leadership, actually have a generation that learns things in school. Wouldn't that be, a novel idea? And that'll change the world for generation upon generation.
Yeah.
So it's a really it's a great idea. I always sort of cringe when people say, abolish the Department of Education, because I just want to say return it to the states. Taking the leftist kind of style of going, instead of saying we're abolishing this, say no, we're actually giving it back to the people. Because I just get how they're like, they don't want people to be educated. It's like, no, the Department of Education is the barrier to education. We need to return it to the states so people can actually get educated. But I think it's a great idea, and it's amazing that, again, this concept is actually being promoted by people with power. It's an amazing thing.
We really want to get rid of the federal government's propaganda wing,
right,
and give taxpayers their money back. We do want to get rid of lots of bureaucrats' jobs. We want to fire them. I think that's a very noble goal. Don't worry, because Donald Trump will deregulate aggressively, and so there will be a booming job market. Time to survive, maybe thrive even in the private sector.
Yeah, time to actually create things rather than being a parasite. And that's one of the things that, once you really start looking at taxes, I'm surprised anybody is not libertarian, because you start looking at it and you go, okay, how many people are on government, welfare? How many people work for the government? And what you realize is okay, there's a tiny, tiny amount of people that are the productive citizens, and they are funding everything else. And it's just, if you would just stop stealing their money, stop being parasites to them, America could really be unleashed, and it would be like nothing we've ever seen before. What else are you looking forward to? We got Ross Ulbricht and, pardoning him. I know there are a few other people that Trump has promised to look at their cases. What else are you looking forward to in the Trump administration?
I'm excited to see Elon Musk recommend the slashing of trillions of dollars from the federal budget. We'll see if he's able to actually accomplish it, or if it's just a white paper that goes nowhere. But I think that he's very talented, obviously. And if anybody can do it, it'll be him. So he just has to be given the authority.
Yeah. And then the Department of Government...
Doge,
government efficiency. It's the memes are saving us. It's again, it's like, you do want to pinch yourself, be like, is this real life? It is. We have to get used to winning. You talked about the Senate leadership. That's the big discussion right now. The three people, I'm not a big fan of any of them, to be honest with you, but I guess Rick Scott has a lot more support on our side of things. What do you make of what's happening in the Senate right now?
I mean, I think that McConnell and the other swamp creatures who hate Donald Trump and everything he stands for want to, put as many obstacles in his way as possible. They don't want Senate confirmations coming through. They want to slow it all down. They want to gum it up. And so they're giving it a shot. And Rick Scott, he's not perfect by any means. He's made some comments about red flag laws that I am not down with. But I think that he is the most aligned And so that's probably the best chance we have. Obviously, everybody would love to see Rand Paul do it, but for whatever reason, he doesn't want to take the role.
Is that what it is? He's not putting his hat in the ring.
I think he's not put his hat in the ring.
That's so strange. He has such a great opportunity. I wish he would seize it more aggressively. Yep. What about J.D. Vance? You think J.D. Vance being the head of the Senate as vice president? People have floated that.
He should. He technically is. So right. He can certainly help to move things forward. That would be nice.
I think that would be very fun.
I think Mike Lee would be great. Maybe he's holding out for another cabinet position though. But
yeah,
I trust him to get things going.
Well, there are a lot of good people and a lot of places to put them. What else are you seeing from behind the scenes? I mean, I know you can't give us all the receipts, but just as you are involved in all three of these campaigns, what are you seeing behind the scenes that you think people are not paying enough attention to?
Well, these are just the first handful of positions that people are jockeying for. Susie Wiles just got chief of staff, and some people were shocked by that, and I thought that was unusual because she's been with President Trump for many years now.
Yeah.
She keeps her head down. She does the work. She's one of the people who did a lot of outreach to the Libertarian Party, along with Rick Grenell. I think Rick has come under a lot of heat for his involvement in Assange's detention previously, and so I'm excited to see that redemption arc. He is someone who advocated face-to-face with Donald Trump and me for Julian Assange's freedom. That happened last year. So I know he's vying for Secretary of State. And there's been some grumblings online, but I'm like, well, you know what? Maybe give Rick a chance. He attended our convention. Like, he seems like he's on an interesting story arc. So,
yeah.
So that's an interesting one to watch, I think.
So Rick Grenell advocated for sort of measures taken against Julian Assange, but has changed his position in that?
He's completely flipped and advocated to President Trump to free Assange when I had dinner with them both at Mar-a-Lago last year.
Oh, that's great. And of course, that was one of the big contentions amongst many with Pompeo. And it seems like the pressure campaign against Pompeo has paid dividends. And Trump just put out a statement saying Nikki Haley or Pompeo are not welcome. He loved working with them, but not anymore. So that I see as another great victory. Do you think this is the right way to do it, to just go public pressure, go on X? And it's great because we have such a powerful array of people, making this argument right now, from Jack Posobiec to Donald Trump Jr. himself. I mean, it seems like we all get it, and it's about getting that message to Trump, and it seems like he's open to it. So do you think that's just the way forward, is just keep the pressure on, be paying attention to who he's appointing, express whether we like it or not, because he seems to respond to that?
Yeah, I actually do. I think that this is highly effective. I think it's an incredible moment in history to be alive and be participating in the conversation with who our president is going to pick to run the country. And I know that he does see it. I mean, when I first had a phone call with him last year, he mentioned my Twitter account.
Oh, yeah?
He had done some intel, some Oppo research on me.
Interesting.
And so I know that he sees this stuff. It's not like Biden, where someone just gives him a script and he reads it. He really does know what's going on.
What's your take on Biden? What's your take on the way because everybody noticed it. He gave a speech after Election Day where he's totally cogent, never messes up a single word. It's like, was he faking it the whole time? What's your take on Biden? Now they're asking Biden to step down and make Harris the president in the last 30 days so she doesn't. I mean, this is absurd to me, but right.
Insurrection.
Charge them all.
I think Biden probably got a lot of rest. He probably just slept the last couple of months, and so
just feel rejuvenated.
Yeah, he churned out a decent speech. I think he probably also wrote in his own name for president.
Right.
He just doesn't seem on board with the
coup against him. Yeah. It's so funny because it's like, ever since he got a coup against him, like, I've grown to like the guy. I mean, he still says stuff that's like, okay, this guy's horrible. I mean, he is horrible, let's be clear. But it's like, he's not calling us terrorists. He's talking about unity. He's putting on the
Trump hat,
the MAGA hat. It's like, man, if he'd been like this for the last 4 years, instead of standing in front of a blood red wall calling us all domestic terrorists, like, we wouldn't even have a problem with the guy. It's like, why can they not just be normal, decent people all the time, and then we wouldn't have a problem with them?
Yeah, how the turntables.
Right.
It took attacks on him in order for him to get some perspective, I guess.
That seems to be the case with a lot of people. We've been talking about it. Anna Kasparian with the Young Turks had a bad experience with her side, blaming her when she talked about being assaulted by homeless people. Eric, what's his name? Mayor of New York, right? Eric Adams. total, diehard leftist until suddenly they're kicking his door down and, threatening him with arrest. And suddenly he's coming out going, yeah, we're getting rid of the debit cards and we need to stop with this division. It's like it seems like it takes a personal attack against them for people to wake up to how bad the leftists are.
Yeah. And this is something that I've spoken with people in the Kennedy camp about. So many of them said, my eyes are open now. I had no idea. Just remember, everybody's in a different place on their journey. And so I think it was really encouraging. It was a huge white pill to see people who were diehard, lifelong Democrats say, you know what, like, I'm awake.
Yeah.
We can't put up with this anymore. It's terrifying.
Yeah. And what I struggle to explain to these people is like, it's your ideology. It's built in. I've tried to express this since 2016 when people were shocked that Bernie Sanders bowed out for Hillary Clinton. It's like, no, this is perfectly in line with his ideology. Yes. It's a top-down authoritarian ideology. Of course, they submit to the dictates of the authority. That's what they're about. So, like, people don't seem to get that, like, no, this is baked into your ideology that you submit to authority. That's like why we don't like it and why it tends to fail in the long run. It really seems like there's an opportunity for, like, already the awakening is massive, but like true mass awakening where these socialists who think they're on the right side of history can just wake up and go, I've been taken for a fool this whole time. How do we take advantage of the chink in the armor, the opening right now as people do seem a little bit lost in the fog? How do we take advantage of that and teach people like the underlying ideologies that drive both sides?
Some of it, I think, is about being willing to meet people where they're at. I know that people on the right and libertarians feel a lot of resentment still towards the way we were treated. And I think that's all justifiable. But we have an opportunity to lead. And we have to rise to the occasion. And as people break away from the regime, we have to say, like, come over to our side. Like, we welcome you wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
And as we do that, and as we continue to dominate the culture and have fun and show people that life can be enjoyable and great, I think that we're going to continue to win.
I think so, too. And it's been amazing seeing I don't know if I have the video here, but there's an NFL player who was fined for wearing a Trump hat. And then on Sunday, I thought I put it in here. Maybe the crew can find it. They're all doing the Trump dance in the end zone.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing like frat parties where everybody's decked out in the American flag and they're all doing the Trump dance, like these videos of on college campuses of kids just parading down the street with Trump flags. It's like, this is such a sea change culturally where there's somebody posted today a picture of a guy and he's wearing a Trump hat sitting in a diner in Greenwich Village. And it's the person going, you have no idea how weird this is, but it's happening. People are not afraid to support Trump. They're not afraid to be Republican or be conservative anymore. We got to keep this going. How do we keep the pedal to the floor in this regard?
Got to keep the fun up.
Right.
We got to dominate academia. We got to dominate entertainment, arts and culture. Whether that's graphic novels, cinema, anything like that, parties, we have to keep the fun vibes up. I think we spent so many years being angry, and now it's our turn to...
For good reason.
Yeah.
Right.
But now it's our turn to celebrate. And I think that's what people really are attracted to. They're like, those guys are having fun and enjoying their lives.
And winning.
Yeah, it's like 4 years on a sex strike with a shaved head. It's not a good vibe. It's not a good vibe.
They seem miserable and they seem like legitimately insane. Like I really haven't played many of the compilations. In 2016, it was, so the salt was flowing. It was, they were screeching. It was so much fun. This time it's like kind of sad. Like I don't get the same vibe where it's like, haha, look at these stupid people screeching. It's like, look at these poor people with their broken brains, like sobbing. It's not even fun anymore to mog on them. So like, how do we not win in the future? And what do you think the left is going to do at this point? Because they're clearly insane, but they seem demoralized. But we can't tell. Are they just lulling us into a sense of false security before they launch something huge? What's your take on how sort of quiet the left has been since the election?
Well, I can draw on my experiences from within my own party. We have a radical leftist element that infiltrated the Libertarian Party and always tries to stop me. They're right. Like little cartoon villains, and they do it procedurally, though, right? It's like procedural hurdles, hang-ups. So I think they're going to push really hard to throw every obstacle in the way of Donald Trump for getting Senate confirmations done. Lots of deep state bureaucrats are going to cling so hard to their positions. There will be hide the ball played with papers. They'll create a bureaucratic maze so that we can't accomplish things.
So how do we overcome that?
Fire them. Fire. I spoke with Kash Patel about this. He was. I was so grateful to have him as the Libertarian Party's guest at Freedom Fest over the summer, and he talked about how he and Rick Grinnell fired 15% of the intelligence agencies when they were appointed by President Trump in the 2016 term, and he said, you can fire these people. You have to find cause, ask them, what do you do? If they can't respond in 8 seconds, fire them. Right. Fire them, fire them, fire them. So.
Yeah, it really is as easy as that, and they're going to cause trouble. And I do think it's up to us, because I think we failed in 2016. I think we failed to back up Trump with everything we've got. And I blame Q for part of that, because his whole message was just trust the plan, just sit back and relax. And it's like, this is the beachhead. We have to, especially with the Senate leadership stuff that's going on right now, we got to let these people know, like, this is the agenda. The American people have decided. They didn't vote for you. They voted for Trump in spite of you. You tried to stop him, and we're just not going to stand for it anymore. Because clearly these people are, if nothing else, motivated by a narcissistic, love of power. So like, hey, appeal to that. If you want to stay in power, you got to meet us at the table. We don't have to meet you. But they're still clinging to it. And I don't think it's going to last. The John Cornyn's of the world, they think they're still in charge, but they're just not.
Yep.
So I mean, what do you think? How do you think we can focus that messaging and get that message across to these people?
I think that we need to start pressing on some of their donors. I think that's a very good thing. Who are the donors for these senators?
Right.
We need to start reaching out to them and getting them on our team, and if not, calling them out and blowing them up and making them wildly unpopular as well.
Right.
Follow the money on some of these guys. And some of them, you'll see they're the top donor to both major parties.
Right.
They just want to be in charge no matter what. They really are uniparty donors. We got to drive them out.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm always so sort of demoralized myself when I see these people. They got a lot of money. They're hardcore. They truly are patriotic, but they think that giving to the RNC or giving to the John Cornyns is like enough. And then they're confused at why we keep losing. I do think it's about going after them and going, look, if you want real change, here's who you have to, support. Here's the right candidate, not the John Cornyns, because you've been donating to them for 50 years and you've never gotten anything.
Yes.
So
Too much reverence for establishment still.
Right.
Establishment doesn't get you anything. It's about personality, force of will, liberty, principles. Let that be your donation guide, not reverence for institution.
Yeah, or longevity, right?
Yep.
It really should be seen as a bad thing if they've been in office for that long. It's like they've been in office for the entire time that we have careened downhill towards despotism.
What have they accomplished?
Right.
What have they accomplished?
What have they conserved? What have powers have they limited? And I know a lot of us have moved sort of from the hardcore libertarian to sort of the, hey, we got to get things done. There's got to be governmental power, but it's got to be restricted. So like, I know personally, like, liberty is still my ultimate goal. How we achieve that has maybe changed a little bit in my mind, where I'm less sort of anti-police maybe than I used to be, because we see what happens when you don't have the police. You end up locking all of the shampoo at CVS behind plexiglass walls. So it's like, all right, that's the opposite of freedom. I'm not free if I have to live in a prison. I'd rather put the prisoners in prison. So I want to talk a little bit about that. We're about to go to commercial break, but we'll be back on the other side with Angela McArdle. Follow her on X at Angela, the number 4, LNC Chair. That's Angela 4, LNC Chair. The website, AngelaMcArdle.com. Talking more about the libertarian takeover of the party, the influence that has been denied us for so long, finally being wielded for the sake of the American people and our God-given liberties. We'll be back on the other side. Stay with us, folks.
As you can see, I'm not just MAGA, I'm dark MAGA.
A few weeks ago, when I saw Elon Musk in Pennsylvania with Trump at Butler, and he had that dark MAGA hat on, I said, we've got to have our own. And we've come out with it. Yeah, we can put one out that just says "Make America Great Again," and that's available at thealexjonesstore.com. But I personally like this one, Murdered Out. It fits great, and it funds the info war and supports President Trump. And if you don't like Murdered Out, we got it white on black. So get yours right now, and a bunch of other great designs of hoodies and T-shirts and top-of-the-line supplements that all fund the Second American Revolution at thealexjonesstore.com. Let me show you a few more of these. Now that the FDA admits fluoride does lower your IQ and give you cancer and infertility, it's a great time to wear one of these beautiful hats, and it's a great way to start a conversation and warn people. Here's the classic Make America Great Again Murdered Out, and we've got the Save the Frogs, over 50 designs, all at thealexjonesstore.com, and it keeps us on air and it spreads the word. Please go to alexjonesstore.com and get your Patriot gear.
Infowars.com is tomorrow's news today.
You're listening to The American Journal with your host, Harrison Smith. Watch it live right now at band.video.
All right, welcome back, folks. Angela McArdle is my guest in studio with us. She is the chair of the National Libertarian Party, two-time candidate for California's 34th Congressional District, but she's here in Texas now. Thank goodness you got out of California. You can follow her at Angela for LNC Chair on X. AngelaMcArdle.com is the website. Just before we went to break, I was talking about libertarianism and sort of some of our people like myself, our complicated relationship with libertarianism, because while I've always considered myself a libertarian and I resonate so strongly with so many ideas promoted by the likes of Ron Paul and the Mises Institute, I love all that stuff. The economics is clearly superior than what's being taught to people in colleges these days. But there was always this sort of love of corporations that I was never down with, because to me, oppression is oppression, whether it's coming from a corporation or a government. It needs to be treated the same. Is the Libertarian Party, how are y'all dealing with that? Because again, I feel like there's a lot of people like me that love libertarianism but aren't down with, and actually you used the term during the break, beltway libertarianism. Yes. So explain this and sort of is there a transition going on? Just what's happening with the Libertarian Party in terms of the beltway libertarianism?
Certainly. So there has been a noticeable split, divergence between the libertarians who run the National Libertarian Party and I would say the broader liberty movement, the Ron Paul libertarians, and what we call the Beltway libertarians, people in D.C. think tanks like Cato, Reason Institute. They don't like us. They are the ones that continue to shill for corporations. They were the ones who were super excited about Operation Warp Speed and getting those shots to as many people as possible. Oh, let's get the FDA out of the way, and no regard for regardless of, corporations and getting rid of the laws, is it a good thing?
Right.
Should we be cautious or skeptical? We can be skeptical of individuals and politicians, but no, we can't ever be distrustful of a corporation. So there's a big split there, and I think that version of libertarianism is really falling out of favor. It's becoming wildly unpopular.
And I think that's a very good thing, because it's, again, we were talking in the break, the parties are dying, right? The lines are being blurred, and there's a lot of topics that sort of I find myself aligning with like AOC and Ilhan Omar when it comes to like Israel. And again, I think they're on the right side of that conflict for the wrong reasons, right? Yes, they see it as a racial divide, and they just, think it's the big bad white people, attacking the brown people. So I think they're stupid in the way that they perceive that conflict. I tend to, find my position from nationalism and belief in people have their own destiny and can choose it for themselves. So we have different reasons, but we end up on the same side. So there's a blurring of the parties right now. And I think libertarianism has an opportunity here to sort of shed the bowing for corporations that drive so many of the more socialistic type of people away. Is there a future for a coalition? What do you think the future of the parties is at this point?
Oh, I think that there's an incredible opportunity before us. I think the Libertarian Party can potentially play kingmaker at every major election. I think that we are ready to wheel and deal with the two major parties and say, hey, we won't run someone and spoil this race for you if you might give us a down ticket, throw us a bone, give us an appointment. Let's collaborate and work together. And I think that we're also potentially a good go-between option and a way for people to come together, outside of that. We were able to help bring Kennedy and Trump together as well. So we can do things like that. It's exciting. We also run Kennedy's fundraising agreement as well. So you never know.
That, it's very exciting, and it seems like just a force of nature at this point. Like it's going to happen, that the parties are going to become less relevant, and who knows what it's going to look like even just 4 years from now, whether the Democrats will still be making the same arguments. I mean, they have to know how unpopular and bad these arguments are at this point. So, I mean, they're going to have to move more towards the right. Trump's moving more towards the right. I mean, it's a very exciting time, and I'm glad libertarians have a seat at the table.
Me too.
Right? And so how are you making sure that you're making the most out of this opportunity?
Well, we really got to shout out our wins. And that's something that's been sort of difficult to me in the lead up to the general election. I had 2 people sue me over my communications with Donald Trump and making deals. You know, they don't like that. They're like, no, the Libertarian Party can't work with other parties. We have to be totally separate and distinct. You know, I said, well, we are a distinct organization, but we don't exist in a vacuum.
Right.
You know, once you get elected, you have to work with people in other political parties. So we have to just kind of continue on that trajectory, I think, really shouting out our wins and talking about our involvement and inviting people to work with us as well.
Yeah. And, you know, it strikes me almost like the abortion people who you know, were withholding their vote for Donald Trump. He gives them the biggest victory they've had in 50 years, and yet they punish him for it.
Yep.
And it seems kind of like that with libertarians. Like, here's somebody who's actually giving you the time of day, actually, you know, showing you more respect than any Republican has shown you in my entire lifetime. And yet you don't want to take advantage of this. It's like they're addicted to losing. We got to get over that.
They are addicted to losing. I mean, this is the first time in 50 years that we've made an accomplishment like this at the federal level. It's the first time. And yeah, I took a lot of heat for it. And I was like, okay, well, you know, like, I'm pretty good. I'm not like this brilliant, only human being on the planet who's ever had this idea. I think I'm just the only one who was willing to assume the risk. So we need more people to assume the risk, do what is the obvious right thing to do, and, you know, just run it to the end zone.
Yeah. Well, and look, Trump's the right guy to do it with. And I was thinking back to when he appeared at the Libertarian Conference, and he says he's going to fire somebody, and the crowd just erupts, and he goes, "Wow, I didn't realize he was that hated. Like, I'll definitely fire him now." He responds to the crowd. He responds to you know, what people tell him. So, you know, if you're up there booing him, he's going to ignore you. If you're going, yes, fire him, or yes, do this, he's going to listen because he wants to be popular. He wants, you know, to do what the people want. So you got to interact with him. You got to have that interchange. If you're just criticizing or demonizing him, what is the point here? Is the point to lose with your virtue intact, to lose with, you know, knowing that you stood up for your unpopular stances, or is it to win incrementally? And I think the incrementalism that the Libertarian Party is working on right now is extremely successful. Is that the right way to characterize it? Maybe incrementalism?
I mean, I was calling it radical pragmatism.
Right.
We want to make one major concession, get a couple of major points every election cycle, and just be content and happy with that and thankful. You know, I want to say also we're very grateful to President Trump for giving us the time and attention that he did. Not everybody got that. And I think, you know, Nick Fuentes is still crying into his bowl of cereal for being passed over, you know, for the libertarians.
Right. Yeah. Well, and again, it's like Trump's the first one to do it, and no other Republican. And it's not that just like Republicans ignore libertarians. It's like, if you look at their propaganda and the way that they, some of the things that have come out, here are icons that are associated with white supremacy and white nationalism. And it's the "Don't Tread on Me" flag. And it's the Betsy Ross flag. It's like, they aren't just trying to keep libertarians off of the ticket. They're trying to demonize libertarians to the point that it's, you know, an extremist ideology that's dangerous and has to be shut down. So it's like, you really got to take it seriously here. You're not playing games with these people. They really are trying to demonize and make illegal your belief system, which is the founding fathers' belief system.
Yes.
So it's extremely dangerous what's going on. And libertarianism has to get the respect it deserves, not be treated like some sort of fringe, you know, ridiculous ideology. It's not. It's perfectly reasonable and allowed America to flourish for the first 200 years we were in existence. So, like, how do you make that argument? And how do you change the minds of not just the American people, but the people in these bureaucracies that are so scared by libertarianism? Like, how do you deal with that?
I think that we need better history lessons.
Right.
I mean, libertarianism, small L, big tent libertarianism, are the founding guiding principles of the country.
Yep.
Individual liberty. That's the whole reason we fought the Revolutionary War. You know, I think this should be so basic. And thanks to things like the Department of Education, you know, and leftist-controlled upper academia, all of that, I think, was lost. Now it's just the United States was founded on racism. Right. Oh, it was just a bunch of whiny colonists who didn't appreciate or respect their king. It's absolutely cringe.
Isn't that crazy? They're literally trying to take us back to like 1775. It blows my mind, but it's absolutely true. But you're also sort of identifying the major handicap to libertarianism, which is that you can't do everything as an individual. You can't separate yourself from the levers of power and still expect your ideology to be represented. So how do you have collective individualism, right? How do you get this pack of lone wolves together to make a difference? I mean, that's a big struggle with libertarianism, because we got to have, it is about individual rights. It is about treating people as individuals, not going, well, you're white, so therefore you're at fault for slavery 200 years ago. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's the collectivism that we're against. But we understand that you have to act collectively to gain power, to get your ideology put forward. How's libertarianism dealing with that?
Well, you have to be discerning with who you put in charge of things. And that's not something that I think the party has done a good job of in the past. It's been a bunch of rowdy, well-meaning activists who don't know how to drive policy forward. So you've got to do that. We've got to focus on just a couple of things. We've got to be more strategically minded, focused on accomplishing as opposed to opposing. When you oppose everything, people will get excited, right? Like people show up to a protest, they're mad about something, but eventually that rage and energy will fizzle as people are focused on things that they can accomplish at home, like taking care of their families and so on and so forth. So you have to give people a win and make it quantifiable and something that they can get excited about and do.
Yeah, and I think a lot of Trump's victories, I mean, he touts slashing regulation constantly, and it's like sort of branding that, going, that's a libertarian idea. Getting rid of regulation, that's not an old school Republican kind of thing. That's a libertarian idea. So I think, taking these ideas that are already popular and making sure people know, hey, this is a libertarian idea. So, you might scoff at libertarianism, but you love the ideas actually. So how do you brand these positive things with the label of libertarianism? I
mean, I think Elon Musk is actually doing a really great job of that, talking about just slashing government spending and slashing regulations. Those are just very libertarian ideas. That's something even the Beltway libertarians should be able to get on board with.
Right.
I know they're gnashing their teeth because they hate Donald Trump because he reminds them of their mean dad or something, even though he's a perfectly nice human being. But that's so libertarian. That's just 101.
Yeah. Yeah, at the very basics. And again, I just love seeing Ron Paul. And I always talk about the fact that Ron Paul, we love Ron Paul because of his ideas and because so much of us, so many of our journeys politically were fostered by his ideas, by reading his books, reading, In the Fed. Yep. Learning this. I mean, some people, being brought up on his homeschool curriculum. So it's we actually genuinely respect these ideas. Whereas on the left, you have a lot of celebrity, politicians that nobody even knows what they stand. But Beto O'Rourke, who the hell is he? But people are wearing his T-shirts. They don't even know what these people believe. We actually have these ideas that have been unpopular for so long, but we haven't given up. And we've continued to make the arguments. We're finally seeing some success. InfoWars exactly the same way, calling out these things for decades and not seeing any respect, not getting any, movement politically about it. But suddenly things are changing. Suddenly the tide is turning, and it's so exciting. We need to grasp it and not sit back on our laurels. So how do you thread that needle? How do you celebrate the victories and maintain on top without losing that momentum moving forward?
We just got to keep stacking our wins. I mean, to have Ron Paul be involved in stripping down the federal government, I think it's such an incredible gift to give to him in his twilight years.
Right.
This man has been working his entire life, I think, for this moment. And I'm just so happy that he's receiving that recognition right now. He gets to have the Ron Paul was right movement.
Right.
That moment. And we need to just have more moments like that in history. So we need to be looking for the next one, accomplishing that, giving people credit where credit is due. And then that gives other people, it fills them with hope and optimism.
Yeah.
And I think that's what at least the first couple of years of this administration are going to be like. It's going to be people excited about things, full of optimism, excited about their future. I hope we can hold on to it for the full 4 years.
I do too. And, when you talk about libertarianism in the modern context, you can't leave out Thomas Massey, because that dude is he is libertarianism embodied. If you watched his interview with Tucker Carlson, it's you come away just going, this is the guy the founders wanted to run for office. Self-made man, dedicated to these ideas. totally amazing. What do you think the future for Thomas Massie is? Because even in that Tucker interview, he talked a little bit about some of the friction between him and Trump. Hopefully that's gone by the wayside. Hopefully he'll have a more prominent role. What do you think the future of Thomas Massie is?
I think it's very up in the air. There are a lot of people who'd like to see him be Secretary of Agriculture, and I think that would be really incredible. There are also people who want him to continue to be a strong voice for opposition to U.S. involvement in Israel from Congress. I do think, realistically, he can have a lot more influence and get a lot more things done if he has a cabinet position or some similar appointed position. But I think it's really up in the air. And I think a lot of people appreciate that he endorsed President Trump as we got closer to the election. I think for Liberty Republicans, and Libertarians, we're our own political party. So this doesn't apply to us as much. It's a good learning lesson, but Liberty Caucus Republicans, a lot of them behave the same way Libertarian Party members do. They're highly vocal and critical. And it's like, remember, you need to form alliances to get reelected. Thomas Massie is very safe, but I think a lot of Liberty Caucus Republicans saw themselves ousted and wondered, does Donald Trump not like us? Because we love liberty. I don't understand. And I'm like, oh, no, my friend, you trashed him for 4 years. You have to be more politically and strategically minded. They came for you because they needed strong alliances.
Right.
So I think that's a big takeaway from this. And I think that Thomas Massie has been the example and shown hey, let's build bridges. So I hope more people follow in his lead.
I hope so, too. And especially when it comes to the Israeli topic. And again, in the Tucker Carlson interview, he's talking about how there'd be votes and there'd be two dissenting voices. And it was him and AOC. And it's it's weird. It's weird bedfellows that you're making here, but you got to get things done. You got to form alliances. You've got to form coalitions. And we can think they are stupid as the day is long when it comes to, things like welfare. But hey, we agree on this topic. Let's work to get this to move this forward. I'm very happy to see the two-party duopoly, uniparty sort of falling by the wayside and people taking that less seriously and working to get things done. I think that's necessary. And again, it's one of these things where it's you look at socialists or whatever, and you go, this is what you people have been calling for forever, but now that it's us doing it, you don't want to be involved. It's frustrating, really, the way that they want to just look the gift horse in the mouth and not just take the opportunity that we're giving them to really create a America first coalition. And I think that's what's necessary now.
Yeah, I think that there are going to be people who cling tightly to pettiness and partisanship. But for the most part, I think your political party registration is going to become less and less relevant. Yeah. People are going to jump back and forth between the parties to get different nominations. I think eventually the two parties will still continue to exist, but they just won't mean as much for votes, for endorsements. It's going to be more about the individual and what they stand for. And that's a very good thing. It's also good for third parties. That means that we are also helping to push the Overton window in the right direction.
Yeah, the Overton windows, it's more or less been shattered at this point. Yes. Again, you can just list the number of things from fluoride to the atrazine to plastics in the water. And this stuff is what we need to focus on. How is it worth it to try to appeal? I think you'd agree it is worth it to try to appeal to the socialist side. How do you do that without losing your conviction? How do you? Can you do that? Is it worth it to make those little caveats here or there in the long run? Are you playing a long game, or do we need these immediate victories to keep the momentum going?
Well, really, you need both. So you need a big team. But I always think that it's worthwhile to reach out to the left. I've done anti-war activism with the left. I've held large rallies, Rage Against the War Machine, with people who are far leftists. I think it's important. I think that it helps us all remember our humanity and our ability to work with one another when we find an issue that we think is an existential threat. MAGA communism is this weird thing. It's this weird thing.
That's one way to put it, yeah.
And there are straight communists, who are like, you know what, Donald Trump is better than Kamala. And so I'm not quite fully sure what to think about that. Is it a scary movement meant to infiltrate the right and wreck it? Or is it just that a lot of leftists don't want to give up on the abolition of private property, but they're like, American left sucks. You can reach people, though. Yeah. There's all kinds of crazy ways to reach people.
Well, and that's what, and again, that's what we're seeing with prominent leftists sort of calling out their own party and going, "You guys screwed this up. You're too focused on the racial stuff. You're too, did you really think that abortion would carry you over the finish line when there's all this other crap that you're on the wrong side of, especially when it comes to the economy?" So what do you think the left is planning at this point? We know they don't give up easily. We know they don't just, go, good game, you won. Here's the keys to the city. I mean, that's not what they do. That seems like what they're doing now. What do you think is in store over the next, 60-something days before the inauguration?
Probably crazy stuff with Ukraine.
Yeah.
Messing up the Senate. All kinds of backdoor bureaucratic mazes. Hopefully no more assassination attempts, but that...
Knock on wood, yeah.
That freaks me out.
Yeah, my advice was to try put out a tweet on Election Day, just like, you need to go in Mar-a-Lago and not come out until inauguration. Yes. And J.D. Vance needs to never be in the same city as you until then. You won. You don't need to come out and talk anymore. Like, we love you. We get it. We'd love to see you, but just stay safe until inauguration day. That is a huge threat.
I hate to say it. I feel like he needs to be in a panic room.
Seriously.
Like, hide yourself away for a little bit.
Plus, it'd be dramatic. You give time to miss him, and suddenly he reemerges on January 20th. I think that would appeal to Trump's
from the Mar-a-Lago cocoon.
Yes, yeah. I think that appeals to Trump's sort of dramatic impulses in and of itself. His podcast strategy was so popular, and apparently Barron Trump was sort of behind that, which I think was absolutely incredible. The media shift that's going on is equally as monumental as the political shift. How can libertarians take advantage of that, do you think?
Well, we have some incredible libertarian voices right now who are doing the Lord's work. Dave Smith has been really dominating.
Totally awesome.
Yeah, he's doing an amazing job. Joe Rogan is now trying to get him and Trump on a podcast together. So that would
be great.
That would be pretty wild. I got to introduce Donald Trump's team to Tim Pool and connected them that way. And so Tim got to ask some libertarian questions to President Trump. I think we just have to keep dominating, like, we're more interesting. Regime talking points are so stale and boring. I can't imagine that most leftists sit down and listen and consume the same material over and over again. Maybe the dedicated ones, but not people like left of center, right?
I would hope not. I mean, I can barely stand listening to him for 10 seconds. So, I don't know how people have MSNBC on all day. It's just anxiety and when it comes to Tim Pool, I thought he had the best response because the left was saying, the left needs our own Tim Pool. And he was saying, you had one. His name was Tim Pool, right? They drove him away. Yeah. Same with Joe Rogan. I'd say the same thing with Joe Rogan. They're like, we need a leftist Joe Rogan. It's like, that was Joe Rogan. You people went insane and he had to abandon ship. So, this is your own fault. So you're right. I mean, it's like all these people that used to consider themselves liberal and Democrat, but just the longer they're in the mix and having, their eyes open to the reality of what's going on, they find themselves thrust out by the left and welcomed with open arms to the right. So, I mean, this strategy has been successful. And I don't want to see we have a needle to thread here, right? We have a tightrope to walk where you don't want to go too hard to where you sort of spoil everything that you've won, but you also don't want to moderate so much that you spoil what you've won. So, how do you maintain that track? How does Trump maintain that balancing act where half the people want just to go hard and just throw these people in jail? I'm on that side. Or the other side that's like, well, now that we've won, we can kind of moderate. How do you think Trump threads that needle?
I think that he needs to lean into being aggressive. Mm-hmm. And there are going to be natural impediments and obstacles that come up. And if you go in very soft and I'm not going to punish anyone or hurt anyone, you're going to come across as weak. And I can't imagine that man coming across as weak.
Right.
The harder you go, the more likely they are to fight back, and you'll probably end up somewhere in the middle in a sweet spot.
I think I agree. I think there will be sort of a natural balancing act, and it seems like from everything. I mean, I'm still blown up. There's a DC Shorts video that I played last week where I was talking about what would have happened if Trump won in 2020 when he still had Pence and they still had Democrat domination. I know it's like we spent 2020 going, oh my God, we were robbed. This is terrible. It's like, well, hold on. 4 years later, it's coming more clear. this is the way it had to be, and it's way better for us now.
So much better.
It's absolutely brilliant. I can't believe we're already out of time. I can't believe it. Angela McArdle, thank you so much for joining us. She is the current chair of the National Libertarian Party. Follow her on X at Angela 4 LNC chair. That's Angela 4 LNC chair on X. Website AngelaMcArdle.com. Thanks so much for joining us, and congratulations on all the success this year.
Thank you.
Hopefully it continues long into the future. That's about going to do it for us, folks. We'll be back tomorrow. Stay tuned for the Alex Jones Show. Begins in 90 seconds. Don't go anywhere, folks.
First of all, we want to avoid the middle of the grocery store and stick to whole foods, real food. But these days, even the real food is short of its nutrient potential. And this is why it's important to take a vitamin mineral supplement every day. According to studies, regular multivitamin mineral supplement use reduces the risk of cancer and cardiovascular disease. Perhaps supplements aren't important to you, but in today's upside-down world, a daily vitamin mineral supplement is a must, and we have one of the best. Support your health and support the InfoWar. Get your vitamin mineral fusion today at InfoWarsStore.com.